All right, there, we are recording. So let's go. I want to make sure nobody's sitting in the waiting room. All right, perfect. Cody, if you're able to unmute, would you like to lead us in the 4-H pledges, the Pledge of Allegiance and the flag pledge tonight?
Sure. I
All right,
pledge,
thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag,
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge my head to clear thinking, my heart to great
loyalty,
my hand to larger service, my health to be better living for my family, my club, my community, my country, my world.
All right, thank you, Cody. So Tom, welcome, and we will turn things over to you. Tom is from the Voyageurs Wolf Project, and he's going to tell us what that's all about. So we will let you get started, Tom.
All right, wonderful. Let me get my presentation pulled up here real quickly. Okay, so thanks a bunch for inviting me to come speak. I think it's really awesome that you guys are doing work with trail cameras, and hopefully throughout this presentation, you'll learn really how important trail cameras have actually been to our research. And the cameras that we use are the same ones you're probably using, or very similar to the ones you're using. We're not using anything that's super special other than the ones you can get sort of online or something like that. So anyways, so really excited to chat about this. What my hope to do here is to walk through, what we do on our project, share the kinds of research we do, and then show examples of how we use trail cameras to do that work. And hopefully you'll see some really cool footage. Well, you will see good footage. Hopefully you think it's cool. So anyways, so thanks a lot. Before I begin, I have to thank just my collaborators on the project, Austin Homkins and Dr. Joseph Bump, who are both from the University of Minnesota. I am also an employee at the University of Minnesota. I just finished my PhD. So we're all from the U of M. And I also need to thank a bunch of different people who recently have graduated college who work on our project. So these are the people doing a lot of the field work. So if you like the kind of things I'm talking about today in our presentation, or my presentation, just know that there's a lot of jobs out there studying wildlife like this that you can get involved in if you're interested. And I'm happy to answer questions about how you might do that at the end. So just a little bit of background about the Voyageurs Wolf Project. So we are a collaboration between the University of Minnesota and Voyageurs National Park, which is way up in northern Minnesota. The Voyageurs National Park had started doing some wolf research in 2012, and then in 2015, we started doing really intensive research to try to understand the wolves of the area. And so that's really a lot of the work I'm going to be talking about today, is sort of that intensive research we've been doing. The overall objective of what we do on our project is to understand the pup rearing behavior and the predation behavior of wolves during the summer in what we call the greater Voyageurs ecosystem. And I'll talk about that in a bit. But the pup rearing behavior is anything dealing with raising wolf pups, and predation behavior is what wolves are hunting and killing and eating. And really that's what wolves are doing during the summertime. They're having their pups, they're raising their pups, and then they're trying to find food to feed themselves and to feed their pups. So if we want to understand wolves during the summertime, we have to understand both of those aspects of sort of wolf behavior. So if you're not sure where Voyageurs National Park or the Greater Voyageurs ecosystem is, it's up in northern Minnesota. It borders Ontario. And actually the area that we do research includes Voyageurs National Park, which is this yellow boundary right here, and then a big chunk of land south of the park. And that's sort of indicated by this white line here. So we do research inside this whole white line, which is about 1,800 square kilometers or 700 square miles. So it's a huge area that we're studying wolves in. And the reason that we have sort of this funky sort of study area is because there are a lot of wolf packs that don't use all of Voyageurs National Park. So that was our initial goal, was to study wolves in Voyageurs National Park. Then it became apparent that very few wolves stay actually entirely within the park boundary. So to wolves, this national park boundary, which is the white line here, doesn't mean anything to them. They don't care about it. So if we want to understand the wolves in Voyageurs National Park, we have to understand the wolves outside of the park. So we do a lot of work outside of the park. And these right here are just the different wolf pack territories that we study. And I'll talk about how we actually get those territories in a bit. So one thing that makes our particular area in Minnesota really interesting is that we have a ton of beavers. So there are tons and tons of them. And that's what this map is showing. Each one of these little yellow pins is a beaver family. And there's over 11,000 beaver family, or 1,100, not 11,000, 1,100 beaver families marked in this map. And the way we figure out where all of these are is we fly around in an airplane and actually count them from the air and mark them on a map. So this is what the Voyageurs area looks like from an airplane. And I actually took this picture a couple years ago. And you can see here, all of these wetlands through here are made by beavers. And in each one of these ponds or wetlands is a beaver family. So if you're a wolf and you can figure out how to catch beavers, that's a lot of food out there for you. And so that's one aspect of our research, is really trying to understand wolf-beaver interactions. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more here soon. So I'm going to spend most of my time today talking about the predation behavior research we do. That is trying to figure out what wolves are eating, how much they're eating, things like that. But I did want to spend a few minutes just talking about the pup rearing behavior that we study or that we do, and how we go about studying them. So like I said, raising pups is a lot of work for wolves, and it's something that we spend a lot of time trying to understand. So we want to know things such as, how many pups do different packs have? And then how many of those pups actually survive to be adults? A lot of wolf pups just don't make it. So we want to understand how many actually make it, how many don't. We also want to understand, where are wolves actually keeping their pups? Where are they having dens so that their pups can stay safe? And that's what this picture on the right here is. This is actually a wolf den underneath this large tree. The wolves dug a hole underneath it, and that's where they kept their pups. So one of the main ways that we actually monitor how many wolf pups survive is by using remote trail cameras. So typically, the way we figure out how many pups survive is we go in to the active dens in the springtime. And we walk in like this. And in this instance, the pups are just laying there right in the entrance of the den. And there's 4 of them. And as we come in, they sort of look up and they're a little alarmed as to what's going on. And they kind of look at you kind of funny, but they're super cute, but they don't really like people, even though they look very cute. And so they look at us. So in this instance, we can say that this pack had 4 wolf pups. So that's in the spring, right after they were born. What we want to know is how many of them survive to then be juveniles, or actually to make it to be adults. And we consider a wolf to become an adult once it reaches 1 year old. So how do we figure out how many of these pups actually survive? And the answer is trail cameras. Seeing and observing wolves in places like northern Minnesota is really hard, because it's really thick with vegetation in the summer. There's a lot of grass and plants and things like that. So we have to put up a bunch of remote cameras through each wolf pack's territory, and we hope that we get wolves traveling with their wolf pups later on in the year, and then we can count how many pups are still alive. So for this pack, there was 4 wolf pups born. And then we have this camera footage from a remote camera this past summer. And so you can see we have the adult. This is actually the mom of the pups. And then in the back, we have one wolf pup right there. And then we have a second pup right there. And this wolf pup eats some blueberries right here. And then we have a third one right there. And actually, we'll listen to the sound, because the sound on this camera footage is really cool. So there's 3 pups that made it. Now give it a second. And they look a lot different when they're this old too. So sometimes you get cool footage like that, and then sometimes you'll get cute footage like this pup trying to get mosquitoes off of his face. So this is what, actually I'll wait for it to end. Okay, there we go. So this is one of the main ways we do this. Now this is sort of like exceptional trail camera footage for us, like the sort of stuff that we get and we're just so excited because we can't believe that we got it and it's so pretty and things like that. But oftentimes we're just hoping to get the number of pups, and then we do this all year round. And we often have about 100 to 150 trail cameras out at any given time to do this. Also, when we go into dens to count the pups, we also put up remote cameras to monitor the behavior of the pups at that den, and just to see if we happen to, or just to verify that we counted the number of pups correctly. Because sometimes dens are in really weird places, we can't see all the way to the back of them or something, and so we're not positive there's, say, 4 pups in the pack or in that litter. Maybe there's actually 5 or 6, and the cameras help us confirm that. And when we do that, we sometimes also get really cool footage from our trail cameras that we put up, like this young pup who tries his best to howl. And he almost falls over there. So if you want to watch these videos, I'm not going to show the entire part of it, but if you like the videos, you can go on to our YouTube channel or Facebook page, and we have all these videos there you can watch as many times as you like. So this is how trail cameras definitely help our research on wolf pups. So now we're going to sort of change the subject to predation behavior and talk about how wolves, or how we use cameras and other technology such as GPS collars to understand the predation behavior of wolves during the summer. So most wolf research that's occurred has happened during the winter time because it's a lot easier to study wolves during the winter. During the winter, wolves are primarily traveling around as a pack together. And so what a lot of biologists do is they put a GPS or a radio collar on one wolf in the pack. And by doing that, they can actually find the whole pack because they're traveling together. And so oftentimes biologists will get up in an airplane. The collars they can locate with a little radio signal. And so they can actually get up in an airplane and see the wolves, and they can watch the wolves, and they can see the wolves hunting and killing their prey. They can see the wolves interacting with each other, playing, all sorts of great stuff. And because of that, a lot's been learned about wolves during the winter time. And so sort of relatively speaking, wolves are a lot easier to study during the winter time than the summer. The other thing is that during the winter time, wolves are primarily hunting and killing larger prey. So they're killing adult deer and adult moose. And so when they make these kills, it's really obvious where they're at. There's blood and hair and bones in the snow. Basically, you couldn't miss it because there's just so much sign of the kill actually happening there. However, when wolf pups are born in the springtime, everything sort of changes about the way wolf packs move around. Instead of the pack moving around as sort of one unit and all the wolves traveling together, the pack starts traveling sort of by themselves. So the den becomes the spot that becomes basically like the home for the wolves. And then all the wolves leave the home to go get food, and then they come back to the home. And they do this over and over. And what they're trying to do, the wolves that is go get food for themselves and to bring it back to the pups. And so if you look at a GPS collar on a wolf, this is what their movements would look like during the summertime. And you can see here where all the lines come together is actually the den. And so the wolf is going out, it's looking for food, it's getting it, and then it's coming back and going to the den. And then it's doing this over and over and over again. And again, this is wolves are doing this by themselves. They're not doing it with other wolves. And when wolves are primarily going out by themselves during the summer, they're hunting and killing small prey. And by small, we mean things like beavers and deer fawns in our area. So they're much smaller than an adult deer or an adult moose. And while that's something we've known for a while, actually studying wolf predation or their hunting behavior on beavers and deer fawns, it's been really challenging for biologists because, again, the forest is really thick. So there's really two main problems with trying to study wolf predation during the summertime on these smaller animals. The first big problem, which I just sort of mentioned, is that the forest is really thick. This is what it looks like in our area in the summertime. So there's really no way that we could sit there and actually watch wolves hunting and killing their prey because we just couldn't see anything. So the only way you can really figure out what's going on is through using GPS tracking technology. And by that we mean GPS collars that send out the location of the wolves very frequently. But that's sort of where the second problem comes in. But I should back up and state the reason that GPS tracking technology can be helpful is that you can put a collar on a wolf, and by looking at its locations, you can see where the wolf spent time and then go visit the areas that the wolf spent time because that's where they might have made a kill. So that's a way a lot of biologists study carnivores and what carnivores eat, is by doing that. But this is where the second problem comes in for studying wolves during the summer. Even with GPS tracking technology and GPS collars, finding where wolves kill their prey is really hard in the summer because wolves can almost entirely kill and consume a beaver or a deer fawn and leave virtually nothing left. So if you can't find where wolves are hunting and killing, or you can't see where wolves are killing their prey because you can't actually watch wolves, and you can't find where wolves are actually making the kills after the fact, it's really hard to figure out what's going on. And so that's sort of been the crux of the issue here. And because we don't know, because we can't really observe wolves hunting and killing their prey, and we can't find where wolves are actually making these kills, there's a lot of stuff that biologists and no one really on the earth really knows. And those things include questions like, how many fawns and beavers does a typical wolf in northern Minnesota kill during the summer? So if you think about it, it's actually pretty amazing. This is a very basic aspect of sort of wolf ecology. Wolves eat deer, fawns, and beavers during the summer across most of northern Minnesota. And yet biologists don't even know how many are eaten because it's been so hard to study wolf predation during the summer. And because of that, we don't understand what affects how many fawns and beavers a typical wolf kills. That is, some wolves kill more fawns and beavers than others, but we don't really know why that's the case. What is that sort of, what's driving that pattern or that behavior? And then because we don't know that, we really don't understand how wolves actually affect or impact beaver or deer populations during the summer. So if you don't know how many beavers a wolf or typical wolf or wolf pack eats during the summer, it's really hard to know how those wolves are then impacting the beaver population. So our project is really focused in part in trying to answer some of these basic questions about what do wolves do during the summer, and really what is their predation behavior like.
Thomas, we do have a question in the chat.
Yep.
And it's like, how do wolves build their homes, or how do they know where that home is? And
that is a great question. Honestly, we don't know how wolves necessarily pick those spots. We know the general kind of areas that wolves like. Wolves generally look for spots that have big, deep sort of caverns. So they like to have dens underneath like rocky overhangs sometimes, sometimes down trees that sort of build this like a little shelter almost, because all the trees are stacked on each other. They like to crawl underneath there. So they want areas that have a lot of cover so you can't see the pups really easily, because that keeps the pups safe from other predators that are coming by. But why they choose them, I don't know. That's a great question. And certainly something maybe we'll get at someday if we can ever get in the mind of a wolf and think like them.
perfect, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So we really want to figure out what wolves are doing during the summer, and we realized we weren't gonna be able to watch them. And so we figured we would try to start following the wolves and going to the places the wolves had been, because this has been successful for studying a lot of other large carnivores during the summer. So we figured maybe we can make this work, even though we knew it might be somewhat challenging. So that's what we started doing in 2015, and that's what we're still doing. So it worked. And so what we do is we catch wolves and we fit them with GPS collars that look like this. And these GPS collars take locations of where the wolves are at every 20 minutes. And then those collars upload the GPS locations to a website. And then we can log on to the website and we can see the locations. And these locations are being uploaded multiple times a day. So we get a lot of really good information. So this here is a screenshot of what the website looks like when we log on. And this is a week's worth of GPS locations from wolf V086, which is a wolf we studied in 2019. So this is everywhere the wolf went in that period of time. So the way that we figure out where the wolf was spending time is we take all these locations and we actually run them through a computer program. And that computer program identifies all the spots that the wolf remained relatively stationary for more than 20 minutes. So if we ran this through a computer program, what we'd get on the other side is this. And so these are all the areas the wolf basically didn't move for some period of time. And so we'd put all these locations on our GPS, and we'd hike out to each one of these spots, and we'd look for evidence that a kill had actually happened. And what this actually, I should zoom in on one of these. So one of these spots where the wolf spent a bunch of time is called a GPS cluster, or a cluster of GPS locations. And that's just because there's multiple locations in one spot. And so in this particular example, there's 5 GPS locations here, all in one spot. So all in this cluster. So we search clusters of GPS locations to find kills. So when we first started doing this work, it was really, we were very unsure whether or not it was going to work very well, because no one had ever really done it. So we weren't sure if we were actually going to be able to find where wolves were making these kills when we visited these clusters of locations. But luckily we were able to. And the reason that we can find kills during the summertime is by reading sort of the level of disturbance on the forest floor. So you can see in this photo, there's a bunch of plants and they're all standing upright. Doesn't look like anything's gone on. But if we look at this spot right here where Austin, who's a biologist on the project, if we look at what he's taking a picture of, we can actually see that all the leaves have been smashed down here. And it doesn't look like the rest of the forest floor. And so this is a good indication that something's happened here. And so once we find spots like this, we literally get down on our hands and knees and we start sort of working our way through all the downed leaves, and we look for any evidence that a kill had happened. So we're looking for fur, maybe a little bit of blood, maybe a little piece of bone or something like that to try to confirm that the wolf actually killed something. And in this particular instance, what we found in this spot was this. And all that, and this is the remains of a deer fawn. And so all that was left was a little chunk of bone, a little bit of tissue from the muscle, and then the tip of the fawn hoof. And the wolf ate everything else. There was nothing left. And this is really common. So you can imagine that finding this in the middle of the forest is really, really hard and takes a lot of time and effort. And here's just a few more examples. On the right are all that's left of another fawn. We have a tooth, we have a hoof, and a little piece of bone. And on this other one, we have a tooth and some bone fragments, and that's it. So this is partly why studying where wolves kill their prey has been so hard. And finding where wolves kill beavers is just as tough. So this is a spot where a wolf actually killed a young beaver. And the wolf pulled the beaver out of this little creek right here on the right-hand side, and it dragged it over and consumed it right here. So the next photo I'm going to show is me looking straight down into that black circle. And this is what I saw. And you might be looking at it and think it just looks like a bunch of grass, and that's correct. And what you can sort of make out, though, is this outline of where sort of the grass is all smashed down. And in the one, and you can see then in sort of the one end of this smashed down area are 2 little beaver teeth right there, and then a little bit of the beaver's fur, and then the beaver's stomach contents. The wolves don't like to eat the beaver's stomach contents because beavers only eat wood, and wolves don't like eating wood. So they often leave those behind. So, like I said, finding where wolves kill beavers is just as tough. So far on our project, we have searched 17,149 of these clusters of GPS locations. So basically 17,000 spots where wolves have spent more than 20 minutes. So that's a lot of spots. To give you an idea of how much time that took, it took us about 19,000 hours of research outside, and we've hiked about 23,000 to 24,000 miles. So I don't know what the circumference of the Earth is, but I think that's getting close to it. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know. But anyways, the point is it's a lot of time and a lot of effort. And that's because wolves spend a bunch of time in a variety of different areas. Wolves are constantly moving, and we've got to go all the places the wolves go. And because of that, we have to put in a lot of time. But our work has been pretty successful. So through following these wolves, we've found over 1,000 kills that wolves have made. And like I said, before our work, basically biologists hadn't been able to figure out where wolves made kills. So we've been very excited that we've been able to do this. We found 497 deer fawns that have been killed by wolves, 334 beavers, 146 adult deer, 2 adult moose, a moose calf, which is a baby moose, and then 70 miscellaneous kills such as turtles and snowshoe hares and raccoons and swans and ducks. You name it. If wolves can catch and kill it, they typically do. And this photo, I should note, is of a large white-tailed deer buck that was actually killed by wolves in the fall a few years back. So I did want to briefly talk about this question I mentioned earlier, where we're about the number of fawns and beavers that a typical wolf in our area is actually killing during the summer. So what we found through our work is that a typical wolf is killing 13 to 15 deer fawns, but it's a wide range. We've had some wolves only kill 2 deer fawns, and some kill up to 31 deer fawns. So there's a lot of variability there, and we're not sure why. And that's the same thing with beavers. A typical wolf kills between 12 and 14 beavers during the summer. But we've had some wolves that haven't killed a single beaver, and some wolves have killed 42 beavers, which is a ton of beavers. To put that in perspective, a typical beaver family has 5 beavers in it. And so that means one wolf by itself killed 8.5 beaver families in 1 year. So that's pretty astounding. And then wolves do kill adult deer sometimes on what we call the shoulder months of the summer. That means in early spring and then late fall when the pack is still sort of traveling together as a unit. But it's really hard to figure out on an individual wolf basis how many they're killing during that time. So one of the big questions we want to get at is what drives the variability that we see in sort of what wolves are hunting and killing. That is, why are some wolves killing no beavers and some killing 42? And so we're looking at a lot of different explanations. And one of them might be the number of prey. So if you're a wolf and you're in a territory with a lot of beavers, maybe you just kill a lot of beavers because there's a lot of them around. And same thing maybe with deer. Maybe if there's a lot of deer, you kill a lot of deer. And if there's not that many, you don't. So that's one possible explanation we're looking at. Another one is what we would call pack specialization. And that means packs that have figured out how to hunt certain prey really effectively. And so it's possible that there are some wolf packs whose sort of members have figured out how to hunt prey like beavers really well, or maybe deer. And so maybe all the wolves in that pack sort of focus on one prey species because they're really good at it. So that's one potential explanation. Another one might just be the individual ability of different wolves. Just like people, some wolves are probably more athletic or better at finding prey than other wolves are. And so maybe that's why we see big differences. The wolves that are really good at killing beavers kill 42, and those that are really terrible at it don't kill any. So that's possible. And the last one could be potentially the energetic demand of pups. That is how much food the pups need. So if you're a wolf in a pack with a lot of wolf pups, that means that you need to get a lot of food because there's a lot of mouths to feed. But maybe if you're in a pack that doesn't have a lot of pups, maybe you don't have to get that much food because there's just not that many pups to feed. So these are all possible explanations that we're trying to answer. And while it seems like the explanations might be simple, it's actually quite challenging as there's a lot of different things going on that we've got to sort of put together. So now I'm going to transition and spend the rest of my talk focusing on some of the cool findings that we've gotten through a lot of our predation work and other research. And in particular, I wanted to emphasize a lot of findings that we actually made using remote trail cameras, because I know that that's what a lot of you are currently doing. And I'm going to highlight how using remote cameras can still provide a lot of sort of new insights into even really well-studied animals like wolves. So the first one I want to talk about is the first observation of wolves hunting freshwater fish. So in 2017, we discovered that we had a pack of wolves that had learned how to hunt spawning suckers, which are a type of fish, in the spring by this little creek just south of Voyageurs National Park. And we learned this by searching where the wolves had been spending time from the GPS collars. So we knew they were doing it in 2017, but we really wanted to capture it on video because no one had ever observed this before. And so we put out a couple trail cameras on this creek, and we were fortunate enough to get this video footage. And this is the first time ever that wolves have been recorded hunting freshwater fish. And so I'll let you watch it because it's, I think, super cool. And so you can see this, you can see the fish in the slow motion here, right there. And then the wolf grabs it. And that's a pretty big fish. So this for us, we thought this was just super cool because I think every biologist's dream is to find, you know, make new observations that no one has ever made before. And so this is what this was for us. And really it was possible largely through using remote trail cameras. Another finding that we have had from our project is that wolf diets are very flexible. You might be wondering, what does that mean, very flexible? What that means is wolves are very good at finding a bunch of different food sources that they can rely on. So they can sort of be, what's the word? They are very adaptable. They can figure out a bunch of different foods to eat. And so one of those foods that wolves in our area spend a lot of time eating every year are blueberries. And that might surprise a lot of people because we don't think of wolves as animals that eat fruits. But during July and August, when blueberries are ripe, wolves go after blueberries a lot. And we've actually found through some of our work that blueberries can make up to 80% of the weekly diets of some wolf packs during July. So basically the vast majority of the food wolves are eating during these times are blueberries. So we had known for many years that wolves are going after blueberries, but we wanted to see it because we just thought that would be really interesting to watch wolves eating blueberries because that's not what we think of wolves as doing. And so we put out a bunch of remote cameras in 2018 and we didn't get anything. We were really disappointed. We put out 12 cameras and nothing. We just got bears and birds and deer and things like that. No wolves. The following year, we made a sort of a larger effort. We doubled down. We put about 20 cameras out. And we're like, we're going to get it this year. And fortunately, we did. So this is, to our knowledge, also the first ever footage and only footage of wolves eating blueberries in the wild. And so we think this is just really neat. And now it's not quite as cool as watching a wolf catch a fish. It's still pretty interesting that they're sort of just mowing berries and just sort of wandering around. And that's what they do for hours at a time, is just going through and eating blueberries. And this is a wolf that we collared for our research. And this wolf really liked berries. He went after them a lot. So another big finding of ours is that, well, it's not a finding of ours, but we were able to show it in a cool way, is that wolves are territorial. So I showed at the beginning of my talk all the different wolf pack territories. And you might wonder, how do we know where those territories are? And the way that we know that is by seeing where our GPS collared wolves in different packs go. So in this map, there are 7 different wolves, each different color, and they're all in different packs. And so we can see where each pack where each pack's boundary is just by looking at the GPS collar data. And so you can see very clearly that the wolves do not like to go into other wolf pack territories, with the exception of this white wolf, which seemed to like to do that, but all the others don't really do that. And that's because wolves will kill each other if one comes into their territory. They do not like other wolves coming in their home, and so they get very defensive about that. So we thought this was really cool, just because you can see it. And so the last one I'm going to talk about today is how wolves hunt beavers. So this has been an area of interest for me because beavers are really fascinating animals because they're very different than all the other prey wolves hunt. Beavers spend very little time on land. They're kind of these little football-shaped balls of muscle with really sharp teeth. And so the way wolves go about hunting them is probably very different than how they hunt than most of their other prey. So right when we were starting our research, this great book had just come out called Wolves on the Hunt, The Behavior of Wolves Hunting Wild Prey. And if any of you are interested in learning more about how wolves hunt their prey, this is a great book. And this book is sort of a comprehensive overview of all the ways that wolves hunt different prey. And there's actually a section on beavers in this book. And the book's about 300 pages long. And the section on how wolves hunt beavers was 3 paragraphs. And all they said was that there were no descriptions of wolves hunting beavers. So basically, no one had any idea in 2015 how wolves actually went about hunting beavers. There was a lot of opinions, but no one could actually provide any data on sort of how wolves go about doing this. So we got really interested in answering this. And what we found through our work is that wolves primarily ambush beavers. And that means that wolves are bedding down next to areas that beavers are coming on land, and the wolves are just waiting there for many hours at a time for beavers to come on land, and then the wolves ambush the beavers. Now, this might not seem that surprising. You might think to yourself, well, how else would a wolf catch a beaver? But the big thing to remember is that wolves, prior to our research, were not thought of as ambush predators. They were thought of as what's called cursorial predators. So a cursorial predator is one that outruns and outlasts and exhausts their prey, and that's how they kill them. So they just chase after them until their prey is just totally exhausted, and then they kill it. So that's what wolves were thought to be. In fact, some biologists said there's no way that wolves are ambush predators. It's just not what they do. But our work has actually shown that they do, in fact, ambush beavers. And so this next video I'm going to show is actually one of me in the field, and I'm going to show what one of these ambushing sites looks like, or at least how do we identify it. And then I'm going to end by sort of talking about actually some research that's going to get published by our project tomorrow, and I'm going to show a cool video that goes along with it. But I wanted to show what this actually, these ambushing sites, what do we see in the field, and how did we figure out that wolves are actually going about ambushing beavers? So it's September 15th, 2019, and I'm at a spot where one of our cars, V079, was attempting to catch and ambush beavers. And this is just a really great example of what wolves do and how they try to actually catch beavers. So right here behind me, you can see this atmosphere the beavers have been working on. I'm at the end of a 31-meter-long feeding trail, and wolf V079 bedded down right here. So literally about 1.5 meters from where we're at trying to catch beavers. And this is generally what wolves are doing. They're bedding down and they're waiting for substantial periods of time for beaver to waddle down this trail, work on this tree, and that's when the wolf can ambush. The V079 was at this particular bed for over 4 hours waiting for beavers. What I'm going to do is actually turn the camera on and show what the beaver would see if it's coming up the trail and 79 was bedded here. So give me a quick second here. So I'm going to put my backpack in the bed, and I should note, the way we know this is a bed where V079 bedded down is because there's wolf hair all throughout the bed. So you can see little white hairs there. It's on the base of that tree as well. I'm going to put my backpack here, so that's where 79 would have been bedded down. And you can see it would have been right next to that tree. The trail that the beavers were coming up through goes right through there, and it actually comes out of a little river there. So if I was a beaver, I'd be coming up the trail like this, and I'd be slowly coming up, and hidden behind that balsam tree would be the wolf. I'd be following the trail, and that's where 79 would be waiting. And if the interaction occurred, the beaver would likely be dead because it's so far from the water. So just a really cool example of this. And what we've learned about how wolves ambush beavers comes largely through documenting these spots where wolves are spending time waiting to ambush beavers. So our project has spent a lot of time trying to identify these spots, just like this one, where the wolf was waiting in ambush. And then we record a whole bunch of data on each spot the wolves are waiting in ambush to try to figure out how wolves pick spots to wait. And so what we found, is that wolves all seem to pick spots that are almost perfect to ambush beavers. That is, wolves seem to have an understanding of beaver behavior and they pick spots accordingly. And you might ask, what on earth does that mean? It means this. So beavers have a really great sense of smell. They can smell predators really well. And so when wolves choose where to actually wait in ambush for beavers, they always pick spots where the beavers can't smell them. So they seem to know that the beavers can smell them if they're in the wrong spot. So they pick spots where the beavers cannot smell them. And then the other thing is that beavers cannot see predators that aren't moving. So beavers have tiny little black beady eyes. And that's because they spend about half of the year underneath the ice in their lodge where it's dark. So they have really terrible eyesight. They can't see much of anything. And again, wolves seem to know this. So wolves, when they pick a spot to ambush beavers, they wait really close to where the beavers are actually going to be on land. And that's because the wolves want to make sure that when they actually ambush the beaver, that they can basically get up out of the spot they're waiting and instantly make contact with the beaver. They don't want the beaver to have any idea they're coming. Because if beavers know the wolf is coming, that means the beavers can go back to the water or at least get a head start. And if a beaver reaches the water, then the wolf will not be able to kill the beaver. So we thought this was really cool to be able to show that wolves seem to really understand what beavers are like. Now I'm going to end on a video that we made using trail cameras. And our whole goal of this video was to answer the question, can beavers see wolves that are waiting in ambush? So we made this little experiment where we made a little decoy or a picture of a wolf and we put it at spots that beavers were cutting trees. And we wanted to see what was the beaver's reaction. Could they really see the wolf or not? And so that's what this video is. And you guys are the first people to see this video. So hopefully you enjoy it. And it just is one way that cameras can be used in unique ways to do research. And this is probably my favorite one right here. So anyways, so like I said, tomorrow, actually, this paper that we've written is going to get published. And this just shows one of the great points that beavers really don't seem to care if there is at least a picture that looks very much like a real wolf. They really don't seem to care. So I just want to point out that these are the ways that trail cameras are used on our project. So with that, I just wanted to end on sort of what our project is doing in the future. So we're going to continue to do a lot of the work that I talked about today. We're going to continue to use trail cameras to document unique behaviors. I mean, we've got a lot more trail camera footage on our website and our social media if you're interested in seeing other things that we've captured on camera. And with that, I just need to quickly thank all of the different people who have actually made this project possible through collaring wolves and things like that. And if you thought that the stuff I talked about today was interesting, like I said, this is a real career that people do, like myself. And so it's something that if this catches your interest, it's definitely worth exploring, in my opinion. I think it's a great profession. And with that, I just need to acknowledge a bunch of different funding sources that make this project possible. And I will take any questions that people have. And if you're interested in learning more about our project, for anyone who is allowed on Facebook or is on Facebook, you know, we've got a Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram, and then a website as well where you can follow the project. And with that, I'll take any questions.
And for answers, I will send their links to all their social media out in our follow-up emails, so that way your parents have those social media links too, so you can keep in touch and see what they're up to. If you have questions, you can either go ahead and put them in the chat box, or you can unmute and ask Thomas.
Thomas, we did have a 4-H'er look up. The circumference of the Earth is 40,074.
Red. So only half of the Earth. We only walked around half of the Earth.
I was going to say, I
Maybe
think
in 5 more years.
Yeah, I think your number, what was that, 23?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. We have a lot of thank yous and awesome coming in. So nice. Yeah, this
Good.
is very,
I'm glad to hear that.
very cool. Thank you very much. It was really fun to hear and see.
My pleasure.
Okay, well, if there's no questions for Thomas, I know Owen had sent in some trail camera pictures that he was able to get. So I will go ahead and share my screen so we can see Owen's picture. And if any of you guys have photos to share, you can go ahead and put them in the chat box, or put in the chat box that you have some pictures, so we can give you a chance to share as well. All right, it looks like Gavin's got a few pictures. Thomas, I don't know if you can see the chat, but Alexis said she really enjoyed this experience, and wolves are her favorite animals for a long time. So she was very interested by what you shared tonight.
Great, that is awesome.
All right, let me get my screen going here. So Owen, I don't know if you want to unmute it all if you can, and tell us about these pictures, or if you just want us to look. It looks like this one was from the 5th of February, so Friday. One of those cool kind of blowing days. And then we've got another one.
And Amy, Owen is unmuted.
Okay, so Owen, I don't know if you wanted to talk at all.
The first one I just thought it looked interesting. And then this one, like on a bunch of the pictures, the camera, like the bottom started getting foggy. And this one I thought was cool because like you could see part of the deer was fogged up kind of, and part of it wasn't. And then it looks like it's a buck that already dropped its horns. And then on the next one, this one I thought looked cool because it's all clear, unlike a lot of my other ones that I got. And it's in like the middle of the day. I like it because I like you can like the tail is up, and it kind of like its head's angled, I guess. Yeah.
It looks like it's up to something. That's a good shot.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Owen, for sharing. Hopefully the weather warms up pretty soon, so our animals start to be active. And Shay, I saw your message about yours not working, and if there's others that are having some problems with your trail camera, if you can stay on at the end, and we can see if we can do some troubleshooting. All right, I see Gavin had some to share, so let me make sure. All right, Gavin, you should be able to share your screen. So there should be an option at the bottom. And if you want to unmute and tell us a little bit about what you got for pictures.
So we kind of went down our path, and we put like just we because like all the other like trees were just covered with like branches. So we found one without branches, and then all the deer came because they usually come. So once me and my dad were going down to the path to go to this creek, and we saw this bushes, like we heard the bushes. I'm like, oh, there's a deer. And then all the deer came because usually that's where they go. And then this deer was really interested, or they were just trying to itch themselves on the wood so they can get like the scratch off. But that was a raccoon in our backyard in the creek. He was probably just looking for something or just exploring around, and yeah. And there's a deer right by our house, and I don't know what the deer is doing. They're probably eating or something like that.
Those are good. That was cool that you were able to get a raccoon on there too. Where do you have your camera set up at? Is it right by your house there?
Yeah, it was right by my house.
Okay. Very cool. Does anybody else have any photos they want to share? I know Shaylin, if you want to unmute, she was having some problems with her trail camera, but she saw some things where she was at that she wants to tell us about. So you can go ahead and unmute, Shaylin.
So we have this back 40 area, and it's in front of a bunch of trees and stuff. So me and my brother hung it on one of the trees, and it got knocked down. So it didn't catch any photos, but me and my brother saw dead raccoons and some footprints, and then we saw a pheasant.
So you know there's wildlife there. Now we'll try and get your trail camera working so you can capture them on picture. All right. Does anybody else have stories or footage to share? And like I said, I know it's been cold. We haven't got ours up at home yet just because it's been cold and windy. So hopefully soon. Okay. Well, otherwise, let's see, let me share my screen real quick so we've got reminders for next week. Again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This was fantastic. I know a lot of the kids loved what you had to say, and so did I. It was fun to learn about something that we don't have down here in southern Minnesota. So that was really interesting. And 4-Hers, if you want to learn more, doing some of your own research about wolves or even beavers, or you know, preying on beavers, that would make some excellent 4-H projects. So be thinking of those things that kind of pique your interest tonight and what you want to learn more of. Okay, and so next week is February at 7 o'clock again. And we're going to hear from someone at Cedar Creek Ecosystem Conservation Center who also uses trail cameras for some research. And I believe they use theirs for buffalo and woodpeckers, and there was a few other species that I was forgetting. So different from what we've heard tonight, but also probably going to be some very good information. So thank you guys for joining us. If you have any questions or need to talk about your trail cameras, feel free to stay on and we can troubleshoot. Otherwise, we will see you guys next week. Thank you. And thanks again, Tom.
Yep, thank you for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
This was awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Okay, Shay, were you able to test it in your house before you set it outside to know that it got pictures?
Yeah,
or?
we did, and then me and my brother went and put it out thinking that it would work, but it
Okay. And did you look at your SD card before you put it outside to make sure you got some inside?
It's brand new, so
It's brand new.
the SD card is.
Okay.
So we had it on